Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS. Now it's real time, sponsored by the Mill Casino.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got Keith Archer here in the studio. He is the man behind the Ultimate Egg Cure, Keith Archer's Ultimate Egg Cure. First things first, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me on.
I know that on a Sunday, especially on Easter, you probably got things going on, so we do appreciate you taking the time to help our viewers that are out there. Your cure has been killing it, dude.
Yeah, the feedback, it's impressive, it's humbling.
When you first came out with it, with a partnership with you and ProCure, I had the chance to get you here real quickly, right when that kind of started. From that point on, it seems like a lot of the times when somebody's talking about their egg cure, it's the Ultimate Egg Cure. You said humbling. You've been using this stuff for a very long time. You spent years perfecting it. You even became a guide so that you could help perfect your cures, either it be for shrimp or for eggs. Is it doing better than you thought it would do?
You know, it's one of those things where behind the scenes, you don't realize what something really is until a bunch of people get it in their hands and get an opportunity to use it. So Great Lakes, the whole West Coast, Alaska, Canada. I'm getting stuff out of Canada, Fraser River. I mean, it's pictures and pictures and pictures and supporting the evidence of success. So
that's great to see, man. And I know that for a lot of folks that may live in that parts of Washington, you may have run across Keith and going, God, what has he got? What kind of cure is he using? Well, we're going to talk about it. So you actually have some fresh steelhead eggs that a buddy of yours hooked you up with yesterday.
Thanks, Gabe Houston.
And we're going to talk about that process. Obviously, right now, you're not going to be going out catching a springer and it's going to be full of eggs. This is not that time of year. This is something that when you do get those eggs going, either it be fall Chinook or winter steelhead, whatever it might be going forward, that you can do this process correctly. And speaking of process, I love the process on your bottle. It's super easy to follow, and we'll go over that. So go ahead and just walk us right through it.
For sure. One of the things that's really important to pay attention to with eggs is the cleanliness of the eggs. Okay, when we harvest the fish, I think it's really, really important to pay attention to what you do in the process of harvesting it. You know, a lot of people will beat the heck out of the fish, and instantly those fish will dump blood into the eggs. So my personal preference would be a slight tap on the back of the head, cut the gills, put them in the bleed bucket, put them in the fish box, whatever it may be. Give them a chance to bleed out. That heart will keep pumping. It'll keep punching it, punching that blood out of the fish. So, you know, Gabe did a great job with these eggs. As you can see, there's very little, actually none. Zero blood.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Gabe and I grew up fishing together. We do similar styles. So, again, thank you, Gabe, for the eggs in a quick moment. So, you know, I'll butterfly these eggs. I see a lot of people curing eggs in a whole skein, and I never have understood it. Like when you look at an egg, the consistency of it and the density of it, like it's difficult to get the powder inside the egg itself. So unless you use a brine process, okay, which can be done with the Ultimate Egg Cure as well. But I prefer to cure them this way. So I'll take and I'll butterfly the eggs and I'll work right up the middle. Okay. And this will open the skein up, like so. Okay, we're going to open the skein up, and we'll grab our bag here, and then we'll cut our chunks. Okay.
You like pre-chunking it?
I do, because it's more about the process of putting them away. Okay. If I leave them in an opened up skein and butterflying them in this whole format, when I go to stuff them in a jar, a lot of times it doesn't quite fit right. If I have a pint, if I have a quart, you know, it depends on what size of jar I intend to put them away with.
Okay.
So we'll butterfly right up the middle. Okay. We'll cut our chunks, and I'll cut them 3-4 inches long, as seen here, into the bag.
And that goes for Chinook eggs, big skeins, small skeins. Sure. You're just trying to get it to where that cure can really get in there.
Absolutely. You know, if I had a choice, my choice would be Chinook skeins.
Okay.
Okay. I absolutely love the Chinook skeins because they typically have the highest fat content, some of the most dense eggs as far as, you know, usability. They're not very fragile, for lack of better words, right?
Sure.
When I'm processing eggs and putting eggs away, I'll put them away based on the actual size of the berry. I will use the eggs, smaller buried eggs, for side drifting.
And is that because they firm up a little bit, or cure up a little bit firmer, or is it just that they won't fall apart as easy, or?
They cure up a little bit firmer, and more importantly, they'll hold the hook better, right?
Gotcha.
So as the eggs mature, they become bigger berries, become looser on the skein, that sort of thing. When they're becoming looser on the skein, you know, when you're outside drifting them, those sort of things, are beaten bottom, whatnot, you're going to find that it, you know, it breaks them down. You know, you need eggs that actually hold on. So,
sure.
Process-wise with the Ultimate Egg Cure, about a ½ ounce to a pound, okay, on the smallest buried eggs. Mid-level berry eggs, I'll run 3/4 of an ounce to a pound, roughly, okay? And then as I get into the biggest of buried eggs, I'll run about 1 ounce a pound.
Okay.
So it's a 14-ounce bottle. This will do somewhere between 14 and 20 pounds of eggs if you're doing it correctly.
Because you really didn't use very much there. And
no, there's...
myself in the past, and a lot of people will use too much cure, and you don't want to do that.
Right, because what you're going to do is you're going to regulate the consistency of the egg based on how much cure you add. The more you add, the more gummy they become, right? So I like an egg that has a moist density to it. So when the fish comes up and mouths that egg, I want that egg to pop, right? So I want that egg to give not only that, but also leak that scent trail that we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. But I'll add the cure and I'll roll it around the bag. And a lot of times I do my eggs, you'll see on some of the other informational instructional videos, I actually do them in large gallon jars.
Okay.
And the reason that I do that is to me it's much easier to rotate the eggs. They become a consistent constant where you can, you know, store them in the fridge easy and such. But right at go, when I add the cure itself, you can actually see the color taken immediately, right? Yeah. So one of the things, I'll get some people asking questions like, hey, my eggs maybe turned out a little bit darker. The initial start of the egg itself, the lighter, paler eggs become the most vibrant, the most, I mean, brightest eggs that you will ever see. When you have those eggs that are darker or maybe bloodshot or those sort of things, you're going to get a little bit darker egg as an end result. So, I mean, look at, we're a minute into this.
Yeah.
And
it's already, you can really see the process already start, and you can see it starting to milk out a bit.
So I'll set these aside in that process. Maybe I'll add just a hair more cure, just a tick.
And what makes you do that? Just because of what you're seeing right now? Yeah,
I'm looking in there and I'm seeing, you know, we got the right color, we got the right, you know, look, but I just want a little bit more based on the size of the berries there. And
that was a really nice steelhead, by the way. I mean, those some pretty healthy skeins for a late winter steelhead.
It was a gorgeous fish.
Yeah, that was a really nice fish.
So these themselves, okay, we have a curing process that's 1 to 3 days.
Okay, and that's what it says on the bottle.
It does, right? So when I designed these eggs, or this egg cure years and years and years ago, I designed it with the intent of, I put 2 and 2 together basically. Dispersion equaled more success, okay?
More scent in the water.
More scent in the water, right? So when I went to the drawing board and started curing the eggs, one of the things I looked at was, hey, how can I assist in that dispersion process? So the chemicals, the formula that is designed here, ultimately over, you know, 1 to 3 days, we make a good, clean, perfect egg. 4 to 6, 4 to 7 days in the cure process, there's some actual fermentation that starts to happen in the curing process, and that's going to reduce the lipids, the proteins of the actual egg molecularly, there's your word, okay, to where they disperse better through the water column, right? So we have a scent trail that is 3-fold, 5-fold, 10-fold more so than the average egg cure.
And that happens if you let that the curing process go for a couple, 3, 4 extra days.
Yes, I will even go 8 to 12 days at times, depending on the maturity of the berry, the density of the berry. Chinook eggs, quite consistently, 8, 9, 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, so first question there would be, when you decide that you want to ultimately end that curing process after 8, 10, 12 days, what's the best way to stop that curing process? That's when
I'll bottle them and freeze them.
Gotcha.
And I do it in quart jars. I brought you some eggs here.
I love you.
Yes, sir. You can look here on the jar, right? One of the things when I'm packing these eggs away, if you want these to last for years in the freezer, entirely possible, oxygen is the demise of the eggs,
Right.
right? So when we're putting these eggs away, you can see as I pack these in here, there's very, very, very little amounts of oxygen pockets as I'm moving these eggs into the jar. So as these are done in the curing process, I'll pack them in the jar, and I'll work them in lightly. I'll massage them in lightly to where I'm massaging that oxygen out. And then I'll just keep adding eggs till I fill the jar. And then I don't vacuum seal, I don't do any of those sort of things. I'll cap them, and you can see here, UEC coho eggs from 9/21/24.
Gotcha.
Right? So the idea is I'll label them, and if I'm throwing any additives in, I will make note of that as well. Right?
Gotcha.
But I don't feel, I get this question a lot, and I get a lot of people that call me up and say, hey, what can I add? You got to remember, I designed this cure, right, for years and years and years, and you spoke of it earlier. I was a guide, and I used that guide boat and that process to be able to actually test, right? I had a day job, and I used that to do so. So it was an opportunity for me to keep experimenting. I was obsessed with.
You're still obsessed.
I am.
He's still obsessed, and he will definitely break it down on a molecular level. But that is your basic, right off the bottle, don't fix what ain't broke kind of situation.
Right.
Not needing to add a bunch of stuff to it. This is where once it's cured up, you take it out of the freezer once it's been frozen or whatever you ultimately do. You get into a bite, Oregon City, wherever it is, you can start changing things then a little bit, adding something to it.
You know, it was interesting. You brought up Oregon City. So last year I had somebody call me up. You know, the Ultimate Egg Cure comes to market. There's a lot of hype. There's a bunch of, the Facebook page, the Instagram page, all those sort of things getting tons of attention, pictures. And I get somebody that messages me and says, hey, I've used your Ultimate Egg Cure for 3 days running and I haven't got a bite.
Right.
And I went, interesting. I wonder what the heck. So I grabbed my boat and I went up to Oregon City and I proceeded to catch 3 fish the next day. I did utilize electronics, help me a little bit, find some fish. And I put that bait, Ultimate Egg Cure, with sand shrimp in front of those fish. And I actually had something else that day that I was tipping the eggs with that did assist.
And what was that?
Mackerel.
We're going to come back from this break and pick up with mackerel. We'll be right back.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Chevy Silverado and the impressive Turbo Max engine. Flex your muscle with the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever. Official truck of Outdoor GPS.